An Arizona Department of Public Safety trooper's body cam captured the scene at approximately 2:17 in the morning on October 5th, 2024. A white pickup truck in a Chevron station parking lot just north of the Highway 60 eastbound exit at Idaho Road. Flames visible beneath the front end. The twisted, burning frame of a motorcycle embedded in the truck's front grille. A man in handcuffs, too drunk to stand straight. The trooper had been traveling westbound on Highway 60 when he spotted the truck from the opposite direction. One headlight out, fire underneath. He made a U-turn and followed the vehicle into the gas station. When he approached, he found the driver attempting to remove the burning motorcycle from his truck. Surveillance cameras captured what happened next. The driver pulled parts of the bike free, got back in his truck, started to drive away. That's when the trooper stopped him. The motorcycle belonged to Darrell Evans, 61 years old. He'd lived in Arizona since he was 6. He loved it here, never wanted to leave. Darrell had a passion for music. He played guitar. He loved the freedom of riding motorcycles. That freedom meant everything to him. Officers searched the highway. They found Darrell's body on the shoulder near the Idaho Road exit. He'd been dragged for over 4,000 feet, 3/4 of a mile. The friction from being pushed at over 100 miles per hour had caused the motorcycle to ignite while he was still pinned to the truck. Darrell Evans was pronounced dead at the scene. The night of October 4th, 2024, Joel Stephen Goebel spent hours drinking. Multiple bars, multiple locations across the Apache Junction area. He didn't stop. He didn't slow down. By the time he got behind the wheel of his white pickup truck, he was heavily intoxicated. At approximately 1:45 in the morning on October 5th, Goebel entered Highway 60 eastbound. He pressed the accelerator. The speedometer climbed. 60 miles per hour, 80, 100. The truck roared down the dark highway at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Darrell Evans was riding his motorcycle home. He was traveling in the right lane of Highway 60, heading east. He was visible. He had lights. He was doing everything right. At one point in his life, he was that free spirit who just wanted to enjoy the open road. That's all he was doing that night. Riding home. Security footage and crash reconstruction would later show what happened. At approximately 2:05 in the morning, Goebel's truck, traveling at over 100 miles per hour, slammed directly into the back of Darrell's motorcycle. The impact was catastrophic. The force was so extreme that Darrell and his entire motorcycle were lifted off the highway and pinned into the front grille of Goebel's truck. The bike's frame folded, metal embedded into metal. Darrell's body was trapped against the truck. Goebel kept driving. He didn't slow down. He didn't stop. The truck continued eastbound on Highway 60 at high speed, with Darrell and the motorcycle pinned to the front. The motorcycle dragged along the pavement. The friction generated intense heat. Sparks flew. Within seconds, the motorcycle frame began to catch fire. Goebel drove for over 4,000 feet with Darrell pinned to his truck, 3/4 of a mile. The bike burning. Darrell still trapped. Finally, Goebel exited the highway at Idaho Road. He pulled into the Chevron gas station just north of the exit. He stopped. He got out of his truck. He looked at the front end. The motorcycle was on fire. Darrell's body was there. Surveillance cameras captured Goebel's actions. He attempted to pull the burning motorcycle off his truck. He yanked at the twisted metal, pulled pieces free. Then he got back in his truck. He started the engine. He began to drive away. An Arizona DPS trooper traveling westbound on Highway 60 had seen the truck's missing headlight and the flames underneath. He turned around, followed, pulled into the Chevron station. He ordered Goebel to stop. Officers immediately secured the scene at the Chevron station. The motorcycle frame was still partially embedded in the truck's grille, burned, twisted beyond recognition. The trooper noted the defendant's condition: swaying, slurred speech, inability to stand without support, clear signs of extreme intoxication. A search of Highway 60 eastbound began immediately. Officers located Darrell Evans' body on the shoulder near the Idaho Road exit. The crash reconstruction team marked the location. They measured the distance from the point of impact to where Goebel exited the highway. 4,100 feet. The entire length showed a debris field. Motorcycle parts, pieces of metal, burn marks on the pavement from the dragging motorcycle. The point of impact was identified east of Idaho Road on Highway 60. Goebel had been traveling at over 100 miles per hour when he struck Darrell from behind. The motorcycle's rear tire showed evidence of catastrophic impact. The entire bike had been lifted and driven forward into the truck's grille. The force required to embed a motorcycle into a truck at that level indicated extreme speed and complete failure to brake. Investigators examined the truck. No skid marks on the pavement leading up to the collision. No evidence Goebel had applied brakes. No indication he'd seen Darrell before impact. The front end of the truck was heavily damaged. The grille crushed inward. One headlight completely destroyed. Burn marks across the hood and bumper from the fire. Surveillance footage from the Chevron station showed the critical moments after Goebel stopped. The timestamp read 2:17 in the morning. Goebel's truck pulled into the lot. He exited the vehicle, walked to the front, appeared confused. He grabbed at the burning motorcycle, pulled it. Pieces came free. He got back in the truck, started the engine, began to pull forward. That's when the trooper arrived. Officers conducted a traffic stop. Goebel was removed from the vehicle and detained. The trooper requested a DUI investigation unit. Goebel failed to complete basic instructions. He swayed when standing. His speech was heavily slurred. His eyes were bloodshot. The odor of alcohol was overwhelming. Hours later, officers obtained a blood sample. Goebel's blood alcohol content was 0.132. That was hours after the collision. At the time of the crash, his BAC would have been significantly higher. In Arizona, 0.08 is the legal limit. Goebel was well beyond that. A background check revealed critical information. Joel Stefan Goebel had multiple prior DUI convictions. He had a pattern. This wasn't his first time driving drunk. It wasn't even close. At the time of the collision, Goebel had an active arrest warrant for another DUI case. He was a repeat offender with a documented history of driving while intoxicated. Investigators reviewed traffic camera footage along Highway 60. The cameras tracked Goebel's truck traveling at extreme speeds in the minutes before the collision. One camera captured the truck exceeding 100 miles per hour. Another showed the truck weaving slightly between lanes. The pattern was clear. Heavily intoxicated. Driving recklessly. No awareness of surroundings. The motorcycle's condition told the story. The rear frame was completely destroyed from the initial impact. The middle section showed severe abrasion and burn damage from being dragged. The front section was charred from fire. Forensic analysis confirmed the bike had been dragged while on fire for at least a quarter mile before Goebel stopped. Investigators interviewed witnesses who'd been on Highway 60 that night. One driver reported seeing a truck traveling at extremely high speed with something unusual underneath it. Sparks. Flames. The driver called 911 but lost sight of the truck before it exited at Idaho Road. The evidence was definitive. Goebel had been drinking for hours. He got behind the wheel, heavily intoxicated. He drove over 100 miles per hour. He struck Darrell Evans from behind with enough force to embed the motorcycle into his truck. He dragged Darrell and the burning motorcycle for 3/4 of a mile. When he finally stopped, he attempted to remove the evidence and flee. The case moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, body cam video, blood alcohol test results, prior DUI convictions, an active warrant, physical evidence from the crash scene, witness statements. There was no ambiguity. Within hours of the collision, officers had established the timeline. Goebel had spent the evening of October 4th drinking at multiple locations, bar to bar. He consumed alcohol for hours. Then he got in his truck. He chose to drive. He chose to drive at over 100 miles per hour on a public highway while severely intoxicated. The crash reconstruction team's analysis was unequivocal. Goebel's truck struck Darrell's motorcycle from directly behind at a speed exceeding 100 miles per hour. The angle of impact, the position of the debris field, the damage to both vehicles. Everything pointed to a rear-end collision with no attempt to brake or avoid impact. The surveillance footage from the Chevron station eliminated any possibility of accident or confusion. Goebel pulled into the lot. saw the burning motorcycle embedded in his truck, attempted to remove it, then tried to drive away. He knew, he saw what he'd done. His immediate reaction wasn't to call for help. It wasn't to check if anyone was injured. It was to flee. The DPS troopers' intervention prevented Goebel from leaving. The bodycam footage showed Goebel's condition, intoxicated beyond any reasonable doubt, unable to stand, unable to speak clearly. The blood test hours later confirmed what the officers already knew. Goebel had been driving drunk, not slightly over the limit, not borderline. .132, hours after the crash. His BAC at the time of impact would have been even higher. Investigators pulled Goebel's driving record, multiple DUI convictions, a pattern of dangerous behavior. Driving while intoxicated wasn't a mistake for Goebel, it was a choice he made repeatedly. The active warrant for another DUI proved he hadn't learned. He hadn't changed. He kept driving drunk. The Pinal County Attorney's Office reviewed the evidence. The charges were clear. Second-degree murder, leaving the scene of a fatal collision, both Class 2 felonies. This wasn't a simple DUI manslaughter case. The evidence showed Goebel's actions went beyond recklessness, driving over 100 miles per hour while heavily intoxicated on a public highway, striking and killing a motorcyclist, dragging his body 3/4 of a mile, attempting to flee the scene. Prosecutors built their case around the physical evidence and Goebel's history, the surveillance footage showing his attempt to flee, the blood alcohol results, the prior convictions proving he knew the dangers, the speed at impact showing extreme recklessness, the distance he dragged Darrell, proving he had time to realize something was wrong, but chose to keep driving until forced to stop. The case went to trial. Prosecutors presented the crash reconstruction analysis, the surveillance video from the Chevron station, the bodycam footage of Goebel's arrest, the blood test results, the history of prior DUI convictions, witness testimony from other drivers on Highway 60 that night, the forensic evidence from the motorcycle showing it caught fire while being dragged. The defense attempted to argue diminished capacity. Goebel was so intoxicated, he didn't know what was happening. He didn't realize he'd hit someone. He didn't understand the motorcycle was embedded in his truck. The prosecution countered with the surveillance footage. Goebel got out of his truck, looked at the burning motorcycle, attempted to remove it, then got back in and tried to drive away. Those actions showed awareness. Those actions showed intent to flee. On September 24th, 2025, the jury reached its verdict. Guilty, second-degree murder. Guilty, leaving the scene of a fatal collision. Both counts. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated. The outcome was never in doubt. Joel Stefan Goebel was 40 years old at the time of the collision. He'd been arrested multiple times before for driving under the influence. Each time, he received penalties. Each time, he was warned. Each time, he went right back to drinking and driving. On the night of October 5th, 2024, he was already wanted on an active warrant for another DUI case. The arrest at the Chevron station happened quickly. The Arizona DPS trooper observed Goebel attempting to flee. Goebel was removed from his truck and placed in handcuffs. He offered no resistance. He could barely stand. The trooper's body cam captured his condition: swaying, incoherent, severely intoxicated. Goebel was transported to a facility for blood testing. The results came back hours later. .132, well above the legal limit of .08. Given the time that had passed since the collision, investigators estimated his BAC at the time of impact was even higher. He'd been dangerously drunk when he got behind the wheel. Officers booked Goebel into the Pinal County Jail. The charges were filed immediately. Second-degree murder, leaving the scene of a fatal collision. Both Class 2 felonies carrying significant prison time. The murder charge reflected the extreme recklessness of Goebel's actions. Driving over 100 miles per hour while severely intoxicated wasn't just negligence, it was depraved indifference to human life. The leaving the scene charge addressed what happened at the Chevron station. Surveillance footage showed Goebel attempting to remove the burning motorcycle and drive away. He didn't call for help. He didn't check on Daryl. He tried to flee. That footage became critical evidence in proving his state of mind. During the investigation, officers learned more about Goebel's history. He had multiple DUI convictions spanning years. He'd been through court-ordered programs. He'd served probation. He'd paid fines. None of it stopped him. On October 5th, 2024, he was driving drunk again. This time, it cost Daryl Evans his life. At his initial court appearance, Goebel remained silent. His attorney entered a not guilty plea. The defense would later argue Goebel was too intoxicated to form intent, too drunk to know what he'd done. The prosecution countered with the evidence: the surveillance footage, the attempt to flee, the calculated decision to drive drunk despite multiple prior convictions. DNA evidence wasn't necessary. Goebel was caught at the scene. The motorcycle was embedded in his truck. His blood test proved intoxication. The case was built on physical evidence and his actions immediately after the collision. The trial lasted several days. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. The defense attempted to mitigate. They argued Goebel's intoxication prevented him from understanding what had happened. They pointed to his confusion at the scene, his inability to comprehend the situation. The jury wasn't convinced. The surveillance footage showed Goebel looking at the burning motorcycle embedded in his truck. He saw it. He tried to remove it. He got back in his truck and attempted to drive away. Those actions required awareness. Those actions showed intent. On September 24th, 2025, the jury convicted Joel Stephen Goebel of second-degree murder and leaving the scene of a fatal collision. Both Class 2 felonies. The verdict came after hours of deliberation. The evidence was clear. The outcome was just. On October 24th, 2025, Goebel was sentenced. 22 years in the Arizona Department of Corrections for second-degree murder. 7 years of probation for leaving the scene of a fatal collision. The sentences would run concurrently. Goebel would serve 22 years behind bars. Pinal County Attorney Brad Miller addressed the sentencing. He stated, "This was not an accident. This was a preventable tragedy fueled by reckless choices and repeated disregard for the law." Goebel's history of impaired driving, combined with his callous decision to flee while a man lay dying on the roadway, showed the worst kind of danger to the community. The conviction delivered justice for the victim and his loved ones. It sent a clear message. Pinal County would not tolerate repeat offenders who chose to endanger innocent lives. Daryl Evans' family remembered him as a man who embodied freedom. He loved Arizona. He loved music. He loved riding motorcycles. His obituary described him as a free spirit with a passion for strumming his guitar and enjoying the open road. He'd lived in Arizona since he was 6 years old. He never wanted to leave. The case reignited calls for harsher penalties for repeat DUI offenders in Arizona. Community members pointed to Goebel's multiple prior convictions, the active warrant at the time of the collision, the pattern of behavior that should have prevented him from ever getting behind the wheel again. Joel Stephen Goebel is currently serving his 22-year sentence in the Arizona Department of Corrections. He will be eligible for release in 2047. He will be 62 years old. Daryl Evans was 61. He was careful. He was visible. He was doing everything right. It wasn't enough.